What is up, everyone? It's Ryan Moran and Ryan Gallagher here tonight on R&R Talking Football. We've got a New York Jets episode previewing free agency. It's going to be a big offseason for the Jets, and obviously it'll start in about a month here when the unrestricted free agents are available and on the market. So tonight, Ryan and I will go position by position, offensively and defensively, highlighting some of our favorites and ultimately, sharing with you all who we think the Jets could end up with.
Yeah, I just can't wait to get into it. Obviously, this is Super Bowl week, but as soon as we get this week over with, I then believe it's 5 weeks to free agency, and it's not that far. We always say that it's always so far away, and then after the Super Bowl, it just kind of creeps up at us, and I'm excited just to head into it and see what we're thinking.
Yeah, absolutely. So offensively, obviously, at the quarterback position, the Jets will not necessarily be involved in the market with Zach Wilson as the starter. Mike White as a restricted free agent should be brought back. And Joe Flacco, obviously, as well, was with the group last year. There's a chance he could even be brought back as well. So not really too much to discuss on the quarterback market. If you have anything there, Ryan.
No, I think it will be one of those guys, if not both. Obviously, I guess if they did want to find a long-term backup, I guess they would look at the draft. Obviously, the James Morgan, I guess, pick didn't really work out, but I guess they could go down that road again if they wanted to later on in the draft. But yeah, for right now, I'm not thinking. I don't think any Jet fan is thinking any of these unrestricted quarterbacks. So
Yeah, I'm with you there on that. So we could go right into the running back position where there's always depth, I feel like, in free agency and the draft. For me personally, that there's definitely a number of free agent running backs that I would, as a second or third running back, love to bring in. Obviously, with Michael Carter as the starter, the Jets do not need a bell cow back, but there are some players who can provide some reliable veteran depth. There's a couple of players who have familiarity with Jets offensive coordinator Michael LaFleur from the San Francisco 49ers. And they all really bring some, good speed, which is so important in this game. When you look at Raheem Mostert, Matt Breida, Jerick McKinnon, Jeff Wilson, I think any of those players as a second back or a third would be very ideal in the system, just from a veteran standpoint. And, would help with Michael Carter. And if they presumably draft a mid-round running back, that player could be eased in early on.
yeah, I'm totally with you. You mentioned a lot of the San Francisco guys. I guess we have a little bit of competition now with the Dolphins, unfortunately. Yeah, I think my preference would still be to draft one, but obviously, I guess if they wanted to go big in free agency, which I don't think they will, I guess Melvin Gordon would be like the only one I'd really consider in that boat. But I just think it's better just to if they want to add a stopgap, if they don't want to bring back, I'd even really bring back Tevin Coleman. I think he kind of fits in there with the guys you mentioned. But obviously, I don't mind taking a chance on a guy like Mostert because when he's healthy, he's done really good things over the last couple seasons. So if they want to go that route, totally fine with it. But either way, I just kind of want them, if they go that route, I just want them to double dip sometime in the draft.
Absolutely. I agree with you there. I think whether they bring back Coleman, which I'm all for as well, or sign a veteran, I still think in the mid rounds that drafting someone who could be a long-term two to Carter, it would be a
Yeah.
smart move. A couple of other unrestricted free agents I wanted to highlight. Four more were Marlon Mack, Ronald Jones, Rashad Penny, and a good receiving back in J.D. McKissick, if you'd have interest in any of them.
Penny would be the most interesting, right? Because of how he ended the year. I mean, he was a first round pick, but obviously his career's been, flustered with a ton of injuries and just not a lot of production. But the last month of the season really, really showed out. Big games, and I mean I'd have to at least consider it. I don't know what his asking price would be. I'd be more comfortable giving him a 1 year deal and seeing how that goes than anything long term. And the other guys like McKissick would be a nice receiving back, but I think I kind of want a bigger back to what we already have in Carter. But I'm not going to complain if we add a McKissick because he can do a lot of things. Marlon Mack is a guy I was shocked actually went back to the Colts last year. I know he was injured, and I guess he's using the beginning part of the season with the rehab, but he didn't get a lot of playing time, obviously with their kind of backfield going on there with Jonathan Taylor. So yeah, I'm good with them too. Like none of them really move the needle for me. I guess maybe Penny would be the one with the most upside.
Yeah, I agree. They're all really just like for a year,
Yeah.
to provide some depth. Like I said, if we draft somebody in the mid rounds, they're kind of able to just be eased in early on, which I think would be ideal. in that regard if one of those players were to be signed.
And just one more I'll throw out. Not really. This one I think you'd have to sign long term. I guess it's Fournette, right? He'd be like the
Yep,
other one besides Melvin Gordon, which probably the guy's probably gonna be the highest paid in this free agency class. He's coming off a
definitely.
good year, so
Him and Chase Edmonds, I guess, would probably have to be the top two, and I don't think the Jets will go near any of those players, honestly. So with
I
that being said, we could go into the receivers now. A group that's highlighted as of now by arguably the best wide receiver in the NFL, and Devontae Adams. It'll be interesting to see if the Packers end up tagging him or not. Do you think that there is any chance he somehow gets to the unrestricted market?
no. I just obviously I don't know when the exact franchise tag deadline is. I believe it's coming up next couple of weeks, but that's when you really know when free agency starts to kick off, like who's actually going to make it to the market. And I just can't see Devontae hitting like the unrestricted free agency. I think the only possibility if you want him is a tag and trade. That's like somewhat of a possibility, but even that, I'm not banking on that being the Jets. So I put it like 5%, and that might even be generous.
Yeah, as much as I would love Adams on the Jets, I am with you. It's one of those situations where he's such a great player that they're not just going to let him go for free, even with their tight cap situation. So a couple of the next few players who, I think personally are worth highlighting: Christian Kirk, DJ Chark, Cedric Wilson, MVS, Marquez Valdez Scantling, and Russell Gage. Any thoughts on any of those players?
Yeah, certainly an interesting class. Russell Gage, maybe for me, like just kind of it depends on the price. So I think he's coming off an underrated year with the Falcons. Obviously, kind of fill our slot position, which is kind of a need at the moment because Elijah Moore is primarily an outside guy. Uh, um, you know, I don't think I the only one that would really interest me is Godwin, but obviously that you're gonna have to pay up on that one. The age makes sense. I think the fit here would be great with his yak ability. Obviously, it's a little bit concerning that coming off a torn ACL, and he's had other kind of injuries in the past. I believe the year before, he had like a finger issue. As a whole, I think free agency it's a decent class, but I think that if the Jets actually want to add a number one other than Godwin, I don't really see that many options here. I think this is more for filling out your depth chart.
I would agree. And a couple of other players that I had just as depth pieces in mind were Adam Humphries, Isaiah McKenzie, Zay Jones, and a couple of intriguing ones in Will Fuller and James Washington were a couple of others I had.
Any interest in, I guess, Mike Williams? I think he might, considering that, Devontae Adams probably won't make it here. He's a decent chance he might be the highest paid guy from this group.
I just like, do you think he fits the Jet scheme? I think is my main thing.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't. I love Mike Williams as a player, but no, I just think even with the draft too, I just I wouldn't. He's not the greatest scheme fit. Another guy who kind of gets hurt. He's been a little bit healthy these past couple of years, but he has struggled throughout, especially early on in his career with injuries, which I don't really want to. Obviously it's unfortunate, but we're in a position where guys usually get more hurt than they've been when they come here. So that would be a massive gamble.
Yeah, I'm with you there on that. As much as I love Williams and as great as of a year he had last year, I don't know if it is the most ideal fit for us here. Any others on the receiver market?
I mean, Will Fuller's kind of interesting, but
As
another
a back,
just on
yeah,
a 1 year flyer.
right.
But another guy who missed basically I think all of last season besides 2 games, and he's out of all this list, he might be the most injured guy here. But a vertical threat. I like Will Fuller's ability. So obviously, if the price is like 7 or 8 million, I might take a shot. But other than that, I mean, let's just go through the whole list and be like thorough. I mean, maybe a guy like Cedric Wilson. I think he's kind of underrated with the Cowboys. We'll see what happens there. I feel like that would be a nice number 4 or 5 option. And if he had to start a game or two, wouldn't be like the end of the world. I think he did pretty well this year. Josh Reynolds would be in that category for me as well. It's kind of and he's not going to cost that much. More importantly, so that would be an intriguing option. I mean, I guess we'll bring up Beckham, and I'm sure people are looking at him now because the year he's had with the Rams, and we'll see what happens in the Super Bowl. But he's been a great addition for them. He's definitely not the same as he used to be in terms of explosiveness, but he's still shown that he's a very good wide receiver. So I think he'll go back to the Rams, um, but I think Beckham's more intriguing than he was, you know, when he got released by the Browns not that long ago. So
I would agree with you there on that. Now, if the Rams do keep Beckham, do you think Robert Woods becomes available?
I mean that's interesting. I think the answer would be yes, right? Because not that they would want to, but you're also looking at Von Miller as a free agent. We'll see if he goes back or not, but maybe that was just a rental. But they did give up, I believe, a second round pick for him, so you think they'd want to re-sign him. So yeah, that would be one of the guys that really he's been brought up a little bit, but not much, I think, by fans. I think most people are looking at Calvin Ridley and Amari Cooper.
Yeah.
Robert Woods, I believe he's 30, so like it wouldn't be like a 5 year. But Robert Woods has been really good. Like he's a great fit in this system. Like he's just kind of an all around receiver. So I would take Robert Woods if depending on what they're asking for. I
I
mean,
don't think it would be too much to get him, honestly.
what would you think? What are you thinking? Like a third round pick?
I was thinking even like a fourth or fifth.
Okay. I don't think McVay will want to get part. I think I know it's one of his favorite players on the team, but like you said, they're in a tough situation. But I would think that a team will be willing to give up a third. I could be
Okay.
wrong. I don't know how massive his contract is, but like just based on the player, like what he does for an offense, it's hard to see. But you could be right. I mean, I'm definitely in if it's a fourth or fifth. Sign me up. But I'm thinking probably a third.
And I would be pumped with that even. I think Woods just he's so complete, like as a receiver, and then you factor in what he does as a blocker in the running game. Pairing that up with Corey Davis, I think would be something else with the Jets.
Yeah, and even that, like not you wouldn't take a receiver at 10, but that would still open the door for me, like on day 3, or
Right.
even if something happens at the end of round 3, something like that. I'm still open to that too. And honestly, I mean, this might sound crazy. I don't think it'll happen if they do end up getting Robert Woods, but I would even still consider one in the second round if the board fell that way. I wouldn't throw
Yeah,
because
I think I'm with you.
Corey Davis only got one more year left, and then it's not the craziest suggestion we've had. We last year we thought we had good depth at receiver, and
And it was tested all year. So
yeah, because you never know with injuries, and then we hope for development, but you just can never guarantee it. So, and like we said, we're doing everything we can to put Zach Wilson in the best situation. So, the board falls that way. I'm definitely with that. Just looking at the rest of the group, I mean, are you interested in DJ Chark?
I definitely would be on a 1 year deal, just with him coming off injury. He's a good vertical threat with speed, length.
Yeah, I mean the age is nice. I'm not sure
Absolutely.
why Jacksonville wouldn't bring it back for Trevor, but
Right.
at the same time, like you just never know. It's a new regime. Well, not actually not a new regime, new coaching staff, so new system. And it's probably gone through a lot in Jacksonville. Jacksonville gave up Allen Robinson, I believe, around the same. I believe he was the same age the first time around. So you just never know with them. He's kind of intriguing, and we'll bring up, I guess, one of the main men himself, Michael Gallup. I feel like a lot of people have mentioned him. Obviously, he's another one who also tore his ACL later in the season. I'm a big fan of Gallup, but I think I'd stay away. Just you might be able to get him on a 1 year deal, but it's like I want a long term option here, and I'm not sure he's the exact greatest scheme fit. I mean, he would help Zach a lot just with his skill set, but I mean, it'd be interesting if they did it, but I think I would. I'm kind of split down the middle, but I think I'd lean no.
I think I agree with you. Now, I love Gallup, what he can do as a deep threat and as a jump ball receiver, but just coming off of the injury, I think for Zach, just a little bit more reliability right now goes a long way. Now, we have discussed both Cedric Wilson and Michael Gallup, and I think it's only right then to talk about Amari Cooper and whether or not you think he will be available, whether that be through a trade or a release.
Yeah, so I'm guessing out of like all the possible like speculation that's been going on, Cooper seems to be the most, I guess, realistic chance of happening, like even being released. So, and you would think that any team would not any like there's a certain amount of teams I think would send some kind of pick to get Cooper instead of letting him hit the market. And it seems like Dallas kind of they're stuck in that. Like there's not much they can do because they have other decisions like these two receivers. Randy Gregory's a free agent.
Sure.
Demarcus Lawrence coming. He has a huge contract. They have a decision to make, but they don't get much relief from him. That's the only issue. Demarcus Lawrence speaking like.
Yeah.
So they kind of, and apparently one of the beat reporters was talking about they're basically choosing between Lawrence and Gregory as one of the other. and they view like Cooper is already gone. So I mean, take that with a grain of salt. But I feel like we've been hearing the Cooper rumors. Jerry Jones didn't sound happy with him after they got eliminated in the playoffs for whatever reason. Like I feel like he was one of the only ones who played well in that game for them, but he just seemed like frustrated and kind of like signaled the beginning of the end for me. So and I think Cooper won't cost that much. Like I think you might have to give a third round pick. Maybe that's being a little bit too much, but I'm willing to do that just to get him in here. And he would be like probably my or number one or two option in terms of like if we do go the trading route to get a receiver in here.
Yeah, I'm with you. I've always loved Amari's game. I think he fits the scheme perfectly, just from a position flexibility standpoint. His yak ability, his speed, his size. Um, Amari to me is, from a talent standpoint, one of the best, and would be a huge addition. To add him with Elijah Moore and Corey Davis.
Yeah, I think that really rounds out in terms of free agency. I guess we might as well bring up Calvin Ridley. He's probably going to be the biggest, maybe the biggest wide receiver that's on the market this offseason. What are your thoughts about him, and what do you think it would take to get him here?
I love Calvin Ridley as a player. I think he would be a huge boost right away, just with his routes, his speeds, his overall production, the credibility that he brings. I just struggle to really see the Jets making that move in this situation, though.
Yeah, this one's really tough because like we can't give up obviously pick 4 or 10 for him. I mean, I do think Ridley gets moved this offseason just based on everything we heard, like or hear what's going on with the Falcons. So like I'm definitely gonna have interest in him. It's just really depending on what the Falcons are expecting. I mean, obviously I think the first for us is out of the question, but I don't know if a first for the Falcons is totally out of the question. Like I would think if all things are good with Ridley, like they can probably get end of the first round pick from someone, like one of these playoff teams, like hypothetically the Packers, if they have. I mean, I don't know how they would do that with cap space, but like they're for me, I don't know. Looking at them, even like the Lions toward the end of the first round with the Rams pick, like just some team that can probably dish that out that we can't. So like it would probably take probably pick 35 from us, and then a little bit more than that. So like and like if everything's good, man, I mean, it wouldn't be the end of the world for me. I still want to hold on to those picks, but if we're getting a player like Calvin Ridley in here, depending on what happens with Cooper, like if we're able to get Cooper for like you know what I said, like a third, I'm going that route. But I'm not close. I'm definitely not closing the door on Calvin Ridley. Like I want to give ourselves some options here and just kind of be flexible. I'm just kind of not expecting this to happen.
Yeah, I'm with you on it.
Okay, so let's go on to I guess people's favorite position. I think we're talking about this off season, and it's the tight end market. People have brought up the draft, but Trey McBride at pick 35 or Ruckert at one of these picks, like, and there's a ton of other tight ends too in the draft, which I also want to bring that up before we even mention the free agents. I'm looking through the draft and like I don't I don't know if I want to lock myself in with Trey McBride at third. I mean, if it happens, great. Like, I'm not going to complain. We haven't had a tight end in a decade, but I don't know if like I don't want to go into the draft like with the mindset we got to take a tight end at 35 or 38. I,
I
I think
tend
I
to
think there's too
agree.
many good tight ends in this draft class too. Like, it's not like last year where there's only like 6 tight ends taken in the whole draft. Like, there's going to be at least like 8 or 9 guys taken probably on day two, with rounds 2 and 3. So I don't know. What's your mindset on that?
I think, and this is something we've discussed a ton in the past, like rookie tight ends can take time to develop. And I think the Jets need something right now, which is why, in what to me is at least a deep free agent market for tight ends, have got to come away with one of these players here that we're going to mention.
Yeah, I'm totally with you on that. I was just kind of bring up the draft point because I feel like a lot of Jet fans kind of expect that route to be the main source that we address it in. And like while people are looking at Dalton Schultz, I don't think they're looking at anything past him, which is an issue because he probably won't even be here, honestly. But I mean,
And it's not going to be easy to get him, even if he is on the market.
yeah, he's gonna have a ton of suitors if he even makes it. And I mean, he could choose the Jets, but we're gonna have some competition there. So definitely don't be banking on that. Is the main point. But like you said, I mean, there's a lot of good tight ends that are going to be available in free agency, and I don't know how we would not come away with one of these guys.
I agree. I'll name a couple of my favorites. Obviously, Dalton Schultz, if he is available, is the top one. I like Tyler Conklin a lot. Durham Smythe, David Njoku, Robert Tunyon. I like Caden Hurst, CJ Uzama, and a couple others to round it out. Mo Ali Cox, OJ Howard, and Gerald Everett. I think coming away with one of those players to me is a must.
Yeah, there's a lot of options here. Um, I've gone back and forth with who I want at the first. Like Schultz would be obviously if he hit it. I'm just kind of not expecting him to make it here. So Everett would be one of my favorites. Tunyon might be my number one. Conklin, I'm also a big fan of, like you are. So like he'd probably be up in my number one or two spots. And I think the most intriguing in terms of upside would be Njoku. Like the age is 25 and a half. I don't want to keep throwing the Browns under the bus, but we just see what happened with Beckham. Like I feel like Njoku's, kind of being held back by the quarterback they have down there. So like, there'd be tons of opportunity for him down here. And what team couldn't use an athletic freak like Njoku, honestly? And honestly, this was like kind of under the radar one I wouldn't like. He wouldn't be in my top 3 or 4 choices, but for whatever reason, I'm kind of intrigued by Evan Ingram. Like if I get Evan Ingram though, I would have to then take, for me, I had to take a tight end at 35 or 38. So like that, like I wouldn't feel great about it, but like the upside in terms of what he can do as a receiver would definitely intrigue me. But like I said, he wouldn't be like option 1, 2, or 3, maybe probably even 4 for me. But I am kind of looking at him as like a dark horse candidate for me.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, look, the athletic ability, the physical talent that Ingram has, always had has been there. It's just a matter of consistency,
Yeah,
availability, his hands. So
yeah.
he's a good like depth option though on the market to have.
It's been very bad for him the last basically year and a half. But I feel like he had 700, 800 yards the second year. Just like obviously, like you said, the hands is the biggest issue. I feel like he kind of just needs to get out of the. Maybe he needs to leave New York in general, but I feel like he needs to change the scenery in terms of the Giants. Like he might be a player who's just better wherever he else on the next team he goes to. And we mentioned basically I guess the top guys. Um, someone else maybe looking at, I guess, kind of a dark horse too is Mo Alley Cox. I don't think it's like a flashy signing, but you know, and he's another player where I'd still draft one. I'd still draft tight end relatively high, but there's a lot of guys we mentioned. I believe like you mentioned, I think like 8 yourself. Like so, like there's no reason why this to me seems a lot like the edge rusher group last year. Where, like we were all expecting one to happen, and like it'd be pretty disappointing if the Jets don't sign a tight end.
Yeah, I completely agree, and it would just make it easy on the rookie tight end that they
Yeah.
inevitably draft in the second or third round, at a position that takes time to develop.
And more importantly, like a lot of not every team, but if you are able to use 2 tight ends, like you can actually create problems for defenses. So like it's not, it shouldn't be. Don't think of it as like one or the other. You know what I'm saying? If they can
Right.
double down and just double down, and I think they will. So I think
I
people are.
agree. I think there will be one free agent signing and one draft pick at tight end. So
Yeah. And I think it's fair to expect that. Like I'd be shocked if it didn't happen. So I think let's just bring up offensive line as a whole because this is a huge topic, even during the draft process and just what's going on with Becton. Fant's got one more year left on his deal. LDT's a free agent. Like what are you doing at right guard? So like we have kind of question marks. I believe McGovern also has one more year left, right? So like there's
yeah,
not like we feel pretty good about the line, better than we felt in a long time. Compared to only a couple of years ago where we had Wesley Johnson, Jonathan Harrison, all these guys that really aren't in the NFL anymore. It's like we are improving, but I feel like we still need that one more
starter.
starter and one more kind of like long-term piece where I feel like he's going to be here for like 3+ years. That's the way I'm looking at it. And maybe it doesn't happen in free agency, but I guess we'll go through the options. I think we should just focus on probably guards if we can.
Yep.
We can look at the tackles, but if anything, it would be more of a swing tackle, I think, in free
Right.
agency.
Yeah.
But I feel like the main thing is going to be right guard, obviously. So obviously, Sheriff, I think. Sorry about that. I think Sheriff will actually hit the market for the first time,
I agree.
and it's crazy because like I seen a tweet yesterday that he would, if he got franchised again, he would have been franchise tagged 3 different times under 3 different Washington's names because they
Wow.
changed their names. So that would, that's just a funny stat. I would have went down in NFL history, but I think they're done with him. So I think he, finally hits the market. LDT, here's our guy here, obviously. I feel like if we are going to go the draft route in the first, second round, he'd be kind of the best option to bring back on a flyer. Norwell's interesting. I feel like his plays kind of dipped with Jacksonville, but and he's probably more of a left guard, but you know,
Right.
and I feel like a lot of people are connecting the dots with Lakin Tomlinson, obviously, because he played for the
49ers.
Niners. Pretty solid guard, but he's the one you're gonna have to pay up. Like he's gonna be a decent sized contract. So I mean, I'm willing to sign a guard. Like besides LDT, obviously LDT is probably going to be, I don't know, anywhere between what 3 to 5 million, I think.
I would think.
You know, like obviously we'll see. Austin Corbett is a guy I think me and you both like.
Yep.
He might be. I think he'll be reasonable. I don't think he'll be
I agree.
big money, but you're probably going to pay like 8 to 10 million for him per year, somewhere in that range. James Daniels might be like the second highest paid guy here, besides I think Sheriff, just because of the age and like the upside. So we'll
Absolutely.
see what happens with him and the Bears.
I would love Daniels.
Connor Williams is actually someone I'd stay away from. Like the age is perfect. I think he's a solid guard, but he had a ton of penalties this year.
Exactly.
For whatever reason, and not only that, he was like, and you can blame it on the coaching staff for the Cowboys. We're not watching every Cowboys game, but he was benched at one point this year, and I don't know if that was like fair or not because Dallas are like rotating guards with him and McGovern. Their own Connor McGovern, not ours. So like that was just weird to me. And while the age is intriguing, and the upside's probably still there.
He would be an upgrade. I'll say that.
Yeah, he would be an upgrade, but like for what you're paying him, I just I just can't see. I wouldn't do it. I think there's better options here, and then if you don't do that here, I think you got the draft. And I think there's one more that I wanted to bring.
Alex Kappa.
Kappa, yeah, he would actually probably be my favorite out of this class because Sheriff's a little bit older. He's dealt with injuries before in his career. So I think him or Corbett would be my number 1 and 2 options if we decided to go through free agency. Is there anybody else that you have your eye on, or anybody else you want to talk about?
Those were all the starters that I had my eye on, really.
It's a pretty decent class. I feel like most of these guys are going to hit the free agency market. The only one who might not is James Daniels, but I don't think he's in a franchise tag. So I think there's a pretty decent shot teams can talk to him during the negotiation period. So, a couple decent starters here, a couple good ones, and then like the rest of it is kind of like rounding out the depth. So like the Jets are going to have options. So if they feel like Kayvon's going to fall to them at 4, and they don't want to take the chance of waiting for a second round pick or trading down at 10 if they have their eyes set on someone else, like I feel like free agency, and we said it in the past, like previous episodes, they'll kind of tell the Jets' hand a little bit in terms of like what they prioritize. I'm not talking about tight end. I'm talking about like whether they actually sign a big time guard, linebacker, or corner. Those are 3 positions I'm really looking at in terms of like the money being spent.
Yeah, it'll certainly be a good indicator for how those top 4 picks all in the early going, what the plan is.
Yeah. And probably what they think's going to happen, right? Like, I mean, obviously nothing's for sure, but by then, you pass.
Like if they make any trades or whatnot,
and then you
if
pass.
they show interest in a certain player and on the market at a position.
Do you want to go over? If we go to defense now.
Yeah.
We can bring up the edge group. I don't see us signing an edge because like this draft is really, really deep with edge rushers. Like they could still sign like a veteran like they did with Vinny Curry last year. But when I say sign someone, I don't think they shell out the big bucks here.
Randy Gregory, Emmanuel Agba, Harold Landry.
Good options for sure.
No, certainly. I think some of the depth players though, like in that Vinny Curry role that you highlighted, I'd want to discuss. Arden Key, Derek Barnett, Dorrance Armstrong, Al-Quadda Muhammad from the Colts, Lorenzo Carter from the Giants. I mean, there are some like quality depth options that'll be out there.
Yeah, I'll just show the screen just so you guys can, if you're watching on YouTube, you can obviously follow along with us. Yeah, I mean, there's some pretty good depth pieces here. I even like Rochelle from the Colts.
Colts, yep.
There's pretty decent options. I just think I don't know who I'd be looking at honestly for like the 1-year deal type of like I would just be. You mentioned Arden Key, but he might even get a decent sized contract because he's still very young. Like I'm just thinking of a guy who's probably in his 30s for this role for us for whatever reason.
Maybe like Albada, who's been productive, especially the last 2 years.
Maybe we'll have the Jordan Willis reunion. I feel like he's pretty decent down there.
Yeah, he was, especially on special teams.
Rasheem Green's actually interesting to me. Kind of,
I like Machine Green.
yeah, another Seattle player that kind of like Penny, where it didn't really start off too well. And then this past year is actually kind of under the radar. But I feel like teams will know that. Like he's not even 25 yet, so you would think that he gets somewhat of a decent sized contract.
And he can play inside as well, which is nice.
Yeah, yeah, he'd be. That's one like I'm keeping my eye on a little bit. Dorrance Armstrong, I think, is a decent option.
Yep.
Thought he played pretty well when DeMarcus Lawrence was injured. Like he wasn't the full time starter, but he was a pretty big rotational piece down there.
He's
Dallas.
always been a good speed rusher.
Yeah, that's see, I think that really rounds out what I'm thinking. Like I'm not really thinking.
Maybe the guy from the Rams there, Ogbenaya Okoronkwo.
Yeah, he's interesting. Kind of a guy who's like kind of a sub package player, but
Yep.
like you can work with the upside.
And he'd be a great depth piece with Bryce Huff, I feel like.
Even I mean, I like Jake Martin. I think he's more of a 3-4, but like
Right.
certainly someone who can get after the quarterback. So yeah, I mean, there's decent options here. I mean, I'm sure there'll be a guy or two released just throughout the league as well. So like it just always happens.
I feel like the Jets will be able to acquire depth here, though.
Yeah, and if they can, they should honestly.
100%. I mean, the way they rotated the defensive line last year, especially, and they'd like to continue that.
Yeah, and like we were talking about, I know we're like a little bit later on in the episode, but me and you were talking about it before we started recording. Like, this is for anyone watching too. I don't think the Jets have as much money as we're all thinking. Like, obviously, we have the literally 4 picks in the top 38. So, and the draft class is going to cost around 20-ish million. So, and I know Douglas likes to be flexible and probably carry over a little bit as well. So, like, I don't think we're looking at like people are saying like 60 million. You're probably looking at close to like 40, which is still, you can still get things done, but it's not like we're not talking about like 100 million here. We're like, we're going to go after everybody and sign, all these top guys, unfortunately, but there's still a lot of work to be done. With that being said, it's like, it's just going to be interesting how Douglas prioritizes the big bucks. I think actually, one position I want to talk about. I think we talked about it a little bit in our senior bowl, but that was more just general NFL. I do think the Jets are going to prioritize the defense tackle this year, whether that is in free agency or the draft, which is going to be a shock to people because of our defensive line. But it's not just because Foley's most likely leaving, and then I just feel like it's a big need in our scheme, and yeah, it just I think this could be one of the big free agent additions, which is going to shock people. I think if it actually happened, like people probably pissed off initially, but I do think it's a pretty big need. So whether they do it here or even in round 2 or 3, I think it's coming.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think in free agency they will add a D tackle. A couple of favorites I wanted to mention. Obviously, DJ Jones, who has familiarity in the defense with Salah from the 49ers for 4 years. Tim Settle is someone I really like, a young player who's good against the run. BJ Hill just had an awesome year with the Bengals. Justin Jones is very talented. He's someone I like. Sebastian Joseph Day, Derek Nottie, Harrison Phillips with the Bills. I think that the Jets will be able to acquire one of these big time defensive tackles here. And obviously, like we said, with Foley likely gone, you talk about somebody, Nathan Shepard, who played over 40% of the snaps last year. Like, this is going to be a D line that rotates a ton, and you have to have quality depth and veterans who fit the scheme.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. Even a guy like Derek Notty's kind of under the radar with the Chiefs. I think he fits that role. Like, he wouldn't be a big signing, but like in terms of what we need. I think a guy that's kind of going to be interesting. I don't think he's here yet, but I think he will be released. But it goes back to how much the Jets are going to trust guys with injuries. Is Michael Pierce. I think he's going to be released by the Vikings. This is someone I wanted to note because that it's hard to run on that man. So like that would be kind of an under the radar, kind of exciting free agent addition for me. DJ Jones would probably be the best here, in my opinion. Probably the one who's probably going to be paid the most. Just coming off an incredible year. Obviously, familiar. He's already familiar with the system, so like literally easy transition, and that would be ideal, honestly. And we didn't really sign any 49ers last year outside of Tevin Coleman, so I think we should start hopping on there, get some of these guys, from
yeah, no doubt about that. I like Tim Settle a lot too. He's like a close second with his age, and I think if there's an opportunity, he'll continue to get better.
Yeah, and I actually forgot he was even here because. And I liked him a lot, but he didn't get much reps and not much. Like he didn't get a lot of time with the Washington team because obviously they had a pretty good line in front of him. So yeah, that would be, and he probably come cheaper because of that, honestly. So like that would be kind of an incredible under the radar signing if they went with him.
And one other player there as a pass rusher, I do like Quentin Jefferson.
Yeah, he fits that role. I think I'm looking for more of like a run stuffer in defense tackles, just because like we're still gonna have Rankins, still gonna have Q, but
True.
I'm never gonna complain if they keep adding to. We have to stop the run. I mean, last year was ridiculous
Absolutely.
with what we had, so we just gotta figure that out. So this is linebacker. Let's move on. This is one of the positions where I think they're gonna actually pay either a linebacker or corner in free agency, like decent sized
Okay.
money. And I just think it's because of how the draft's going to unfold, just because obviously a lot of things can happen. But I'm pretty sure everyone knows the Jets are going to take either a tackle slash guard at 4 or an
Yeah.
edge rusher. So like, and obviously from there, it'll change what happens at 10 and then what happens at 30, 35, and 38. But I feel like most people with those 4 picks kind of expect it to go edge, uh, tackle slash guard at one of those positions, tight end, I'll say. And then the
Yeah.
other spot's kind of up in the air, whether you want to
Maybe
go
receiver, maybe corner.
linebacker, safety, or corner. So like I feel like the Jets should have a pretty decent or by then, because we'll have the combine and everything before free agency. They'll start to hear things and hopefully, know things. Obviously, you can't predict everything, but the draft should be almost the draft evaluation should be almost done at that point in terms of like the depth, how they view the draft in terms of certain positions. So that'll tell us a lot. Like I said, what they'll do in free agency. And there's pretty good options here. I think my main signing would be Campbell from the Packers.
I'm with you.
Campbell, someone who's obviously familiar with the system and just coming off an incredible year. And like linebackers, also one of the spots where like, and sometimes it takes later on in their career to actually like get to their best. Like Demaro Davis is a prime example of that. I think Campbell's kind of the next one who's showing that. It's like, and there's other good options besides Campbell. Like Anthony Walker is pretty decent from the Browns, obviously with the Colts for years. Kind of
Kenny
familiar
Young.
with. Hey, what happened?
I like Kenny Young as well.
Yeah,
Kyler White. I would say Foy Sade from the Falcons, Leighton
yeah,
Vander Esch. There's some quality options for the Jets to pair up with TJ if they look to get involved here.
yeah. I like Newusu, but he's more of a pass rusher, and they're kind of
Yeah.
throwing it all in here. Yeah, I mean it's not the deepest class in terms of inside linebacker in free agency, but like you feel like, I mean Evans would be kind of he's been Rashawn Evans. I wouldn't want to sign him, but like that's kind of what the Jets have done under Douglas in terms of
Right.
like first round picks and like I guess upside. But I feel like we shouldn't be. I mean I still want to do that in certain positions, but if we're talking about actually shoring up a unit, our linebacker play unit was pretty bad last year. There's no dancing around it. So like that wouldn't be like. I mean, I'd be fine with it, but then at that point, I still want to prioritize in the draft, and we can't prioritize everything in the draft.
Right.
So like, I don't want to put ourselves in an unnecessary hole. AJ Johnson's actually someone I like from Denver. Like, actually, I think both their linebackers are free agents.
Yeah, Josie Jewell as well.
So like, I'd be looking at one of those two, even as a if they don't want to go out like crazy spend, like they don't want to hit double digits, but those two, I'd feel much better like rounding out our unit, and then you can
Right.
still hope for the development of like Sherwood and Nazareth. And
Jaylen Brown and Nicholas Morrow.
Yeah, they're kind of interesting. Like I kind of want like a middle linebacker. Like they're more of like weak side linebackers and good coverage skills. Which if they did that, I'm fine. These are 2 players me and you wanted last year.
Yep.
So if they want to do that and like, but then I feel like you're almost giving up. I mean, maybe they don't believe in Quincy Williams long term. So like that's the only thing that kind of throws me off there because like they're very, both of them are really athletic. I mean, I do trust them more than Quincy. Like I'll say that right now. So like if they do that, I'm fine with it. It just doesn't seem like in my head they're going to go that route. I feel like they're going to go more toward middle linebacker or strong side.
Yeah, I can definitely see that.
But this is a position I want to address, whether it's here or the draft. Like I am gonna in all my mock drafts, I'm giving them like if depending on what happens in free agency, I will give us a second round linebacker. Like I don't care. So let's go to the secondary. This is actually one I think they'll actually sign 2 players, like one at safety and maybe 2 at safety if they want to bring back like a joiner on like those kind of deals for me. Like they're not like a joiner deal. If that happens again, like that's not changing my draft.
Right.
I think you agree. That's not changing anything.
That's why you do it on 1-year deal.
Yeah, that's more of a flyer and see what happens again. That's not changing any draft plans. But
just having a capable veteran.
Yeah, I'll let you start this off. Obviously, we got a ton of options, and before you do, like this should be like the tight end position in terms of the safety, where the Jets have to come away with one of these guys, and they will. So
I agree that they'll definitely come away with one safety. It's a deep class. I'll start just with the corners. I think we both probably expect J.C. Jackson and Carlton Davis to both get franchised. But the group after them is still pretty decent, with Darius Williams. DJ Reed is someone who has familiarity with Salah from the 49ers, Charvarius Ward, a couple others to round it out. Rasul Douglas, Mike Hughes, Dante Jackson, and Anthony Averett from the Ravens. I think if the Jets want to acquire a veteran and not, pigeonhole themselves in the draft, there's definitely options here for, 1 or 2 year deals.
yeah, I'm totally with you. And this is a position where Salah, when he first got there, and Kyle Shanahan with the Niners, like they actually signed Sherman to I think a 3-year deal. So like that, and I know people for whatever reason there's a narrative going around that the Jets don't value corners. Like I don't know where that's coming from. Like what defense doesn't value corners? Like that's the most ridiculous statement I've ever heard. Obviously, if you want to like say like in terms of depth, what they did in terms of like adding a bunch of picks, I guess on day 3. But that doesn't mean they don't value corners. It just so happened that we need
That's the way last offseason went.
not only that, and we were trying to build around a quarterback for his first year. So like, and the defense was ranked 32. It wasn't just one unit. I mean, it was basically the entire thing. So just and listen, that's not to say like, I'm not excited to see Bryce Hall in year 3 and stuff like that, but and even Michael Carter II, but we still need like, in my opinion, I still think we definitely need one more outside corner, if not 2. And we definitely don't have a number 1 like as of right now. Maybe we hope Bryce Hall
Can be,
but like I don't want to go into the season like we kind of did last year. We're blind on optimism, and like suddenly we're halfway through the year and we're like, oh, why didn't we get any corners? Why didn't we draft? Because that's what's going to happen if they did that. They'll be like, oh, the corners are fine, and then suddenly the team will be much better overall, and we'll be losing games because our secondary, and then suddenly it'll be like, why didn't Joe Douglas do this? Why didn't Salah bring in the corner? And I don't think we'll get to that point. I'm just saying like people are very double standards like that, where they'll say something now in February, and then when the play actually starts and there's an issue, they'll be the first one to complain. But with that long ramble going on, yeah, some of the corners I'm looking at, I think this is going to happen because as much as I would want maybe a Sauce Gardner at 10, or even a Derek Stingley if he fell to 10, like that opens up my a little bit concerning, but the talent he'd be one of my options at 10, unless
absolutely.
but the thing is I don't want to double down on defense at 4 and 10, but okay, sometimes that happens, and it could happen. So, but anyway, with that being said, I don't think they'll wait for that. I don't think because obviously free agency is happening first, so I think they'll get someone to like round out the unit. Like, still want to have it overall young, which I think they'll do. I think they'll draft a safety as well and sign a the veteran safety, but in his mid-20s. So, with that being said, I think they'll actually sign like a kind of an older corner. I'm looking at like I guess Verrett. He would fly into the 1-year deals for me just because a ton of injuries for him, but
he is talented.
And the year he had under Salah 2 years ago was incredible. So he'd be one of them. Gilmore's interesting. Like I know he's 31, but like he kind of fits the Sherman thing where it's like, man, if we can bring him in for 3 years, guaranteed 2, like I'm good with that. Obviously, that still keeps me flexible in terms of long term for the draft, but it shores up the not only 1 year, but basically the next 2. And then if he actually is still, obviously it's kind of tough because missed all of like 2021 and then 2020 and then 2021. I believe he played like half the game. So like there's certainly questions to it, but the talent would be nice to add to this unit. Casey Hayward's coming off an incredible year.
Yeah, he is.
Bounce back year, familiar with the system. Like I'm good with that. That's more like probably 1 year deal for me too. So I do want to get someone on like a 2 or 3 year deal. I don't want to really like if it happens to be Verrett, I kind of want to double down on it. You know what I'm saying? If that's the player. Obviously, J.C. Jackson would be like the big prize signing. I mean, we need that kind of player in terms of like ball skills to get the ball. But he's going to cost a pretty penny, so I don't. And he might not. I think he'll actually make it to free agency. I think, or he'll be. Okay. I don't think he's. You think? I don't think he's going to get franchised tag. Do you?
I think he is going to get franchised. Honestly.
Okay, you are. I'm pretty sure Carlton Davis is. The Patriots are very weird in terms of that. Like they'll do it 1 year and then they don't do it. So like he could very well be. I mean, Akil Weatherspoon, I guess you got to consider.
Right.
I'm familiar with the Niners. we had a chance at him last year, didn't. So I don't know if that changes this year. Kind of an up and down like year with the Steelers as well. I feel like he had some high. That's a player he's been very high highs, and
Like
then
his career, yep,
lows
a
are
lot of ups and downs.
yeah, the lows are extremely
Physically
concerning.
talented.
Javarius Ward probably, I guess, my favorite in terms because like the age is pretty good, and he the thing is like he probably wouldn't be like the sexy name people are looking for, but I feel like he would kind of he's been battle tested in Kansas City. He's not the best corner, obviously, but I feel like he's held his ground more often than not. And the Chiefs under Spagnuolo's kind of put him in bad positions. I feel like this would kind of this scheme would be better suited probably for him. I mean, there's tons of decent options here. Honestly, you can even look at Levi Wallace if you want. I wouldn't go that
Yeah,
route, but it's an option you got to consider for the Jets. That basically I think rounds out. Obviously, I mean, actually, someone you mentioned too is Dante Jackson. I feel like he might be my favorite just because of the athleticism, the age. Like we're always talking about guys we want to bank on, like they've been doing. He's not a first round pick, but he's like a second round pick, I believe. Like someone with high upside. Like I feel like, and the Panthers are a team that like they added so many corners this past year, this offseason. So like they got the decision with Gilmore and Jackson. I wouldn't mind taking whichever one they don't decide to bring back. You're gonna have to pay decent money for him though, but I think I'm willing to do that honestly.
like you said, I mean, just the speed that he has alone. I mean, it makes him intriguing.
Russell Douglas.
Oh, he had a great year. I did mention him when I was going through all the names before. He had a great year. Obviously, Joe Douglas was on the staff in Philly when he got drafted there. His career was really up and down up until last year when he was just
Yep.
awesome for the Packers. He'd definitely be an intriguing player to acquire.
That one's gonna depend on the price. Because like you said, the career's been up and down, mostly kind of down. Obviously bounced around a couple teams, but that's not to say you couldn't put it all together. Like that Packers year was pretty incredible, and I'm intrigued. We'll see what his market is in terms of average per year. Anthony Everett, he's interesting to me. Like he's
Yeah,
someone like when the Ravens corners when Marcus Peters went down, he held the fort down for quite a while there before he
he
even got
definitely
hurt.
did.
So like he's probably gonna be the guy who kind of gets paid more than people are thinking in terms of this class. I don't think many people probably know who he is. But like that, he would definitely. I would like Everett if that's the
I
route
would
we
like
go.
to.
I think that's it. That rounds out the unit. So
Yep,
there's a lot of different options here, honestly.
I agree.
And if they don't go this route,
Probably
okay,
going to be players added to it. I mean, when
yeah,
trades and releases start happening, the Jets could probably find some good value at corner on a 1 or 2 year deal.
yeah, and they should. Even if they decide to
Yep,
go in the draft with someone, they should. We need to add a cornerback room.
absolutely.
So let's go to the safety.
Really,
Obviously, this is the one we're all expecting us to sign at least one.
at least one.
Yeah, I guess they could double dip if they don't plan on, drafting a safety. But this is a position that's going to get addressed.
So the free safeties, I mean, it's obviously highlighted by the two great ones in Jesse Bates and Marcus Williams. I think we both anticipate Bates getting franchise tagged.
Yeah,
So obviously, it puts Williams as probably the top one on the market. You got Quandre Diggs there, who's really good. Ron Curse had a great year for the Cowboys in coverage. You got Bobby McCain, who's a savvy veteran with versatility. Deshaun Elliott, Xavier Woods, Tracy Walker. There's some younger players there, who would certainly be upgrades for the Jets at the free safety position. Strong safety as well. I mean, there's a couple of players who I really like. Jordan Whitehead, who we've discussed a ton. We're both big fans of him. MJ Stewart had a great year for the Browns last year. Brings some versatility to playing the slot as well. Jaquiski Tart was with Salah on the 49ers there for 4 years. He'd be a good upgrade and veteran, strong safety. And the one other one who I like as well, he's a younger player, is Ronnie Harrison, who's a bigger physical player, who would help against the run. But overall, I mean, there are a ton of players at the safety position, like you said, for the Jets they have to get at least one and maybe even a second.
yeah. This group might be even deeper than the corners, just all the guys you mentioned. And basically outside of Jesse Bates, they're all going to hit the market, I would think.
Yep.
Obviously, I think a lot of Jet fans are wanting Marcus Williams, and maybe that is the one big splash move we make.
Signing.
I mean, that would be incredible. We need that, obviously. The age is perfect. I think he's a perfect scheme fit as well. but for some reason, I don't think it's going to happen.
Okay.
I mean, it could be
I
wrong.
tend to
I hope I am wrong because I would love Marcus Williams.
Same here.
But
I tend to agree, though.
yeah, I think I probably would prioritize, you know, deep range free safety because I feel like this, like I was telling you beforehand, I feel like the strong safeties and the players near the box are that's kind of like the strong suit in this draft.
Yep.
Like, and obviously, like I said, we double dip. So like, we'll see what happens here. But like, I mean, even though I feel like a lot of these guys are even like versatile where they can play both. Like I like Jabril Peppers. I think you mentioned him as well. Um, you know, Tracy Walker, someone that's incredibly under the radar with the
Yep.
Lions. I even like Jordan Whitehead. He'd be more of a strong safety, but I would not be against that. Like,
Great
uh,
player.
yeah, really good player, and certainly someone help us against the run. Kirsch from the Cowboys coming off actually an incredible year. I mean, their approach to it last year is kind of intriguing to me. I don't want to do that though because we need to actually
Draft.
we need two strong safeties starting on two starting safeties that actually like that need to start. And I don't even know if we have quality depth. Just to be honest, obviously we'll still bring back Davis and Pinnock, and we'll see what
Riley.
happens. If they want to bring back Joyner, that's fine on a 1 year deal. But I wouldn't even guarantee that those guys are here in like 2 or 3 years. Like that's just where we are with the unit. So obviously, if they want to double dip here, I mean, it'd probably be expensive, obviously, depending on the player. So I'm feeling like, all right, just bring back maybe Joyner on a 1 year deal and then sign kind of a bigger name, whether that's like Peppers, Whitehead, like you said. I mean, I don't want to get rid of May and just sign. I mean, Diggs is always pretty incredible, but he's also coming off serious, I
Mhm.
think, ankle fracture, lower leg. I know that for sure. But Marcus Williams is perfect with the age. I guess they really wanted to, if it was just getting rid of Marcus May, got Dig. I mean, Tyrann Mathieu, we didn't really mention, I guess, because he's a little bit older, but been an incredible player throughout his whole career. So, like, there's plenty of options here. We should be signing one of these guys, if not two.
100%. And it gives you flexibility then for the draft to do what you
Yeah.
want. You don't feel forced into having to take a safety in the second round. You know that you have capable veterans if
Yep.
you sign at least one and even a second player here.
Yep. I'll actually retract my statement from before. I'd rather sign Tart than bring back Joyner on a 1 year deal if we're going the 1 year route.
Yeah, I think I agree.
Probably someone on similar money and maybe someone obviously drop the pick, to kind of in the championship game, but probably someone who's leaving San Fran after that, unfortunately. But obviously familiar with the system, and like I said before, when we are talking about X 49ers, like it's time to bring over some of these guys. Salah, I think one of them I'd be happy with, honestly. I think was he a free agent last year? I definitely wanted him. I
Yeah,
think last year, and
yeah,
he
he was
ended up
available.
coming back. So I think that rounds up the overall unit. Unless you're looking at, you want to look at a kicker real
Maybe
quick?
Young
Yeah,
Wei Koo was obviously the headliner.
he'd be
If they were,
incredible. I'd even
if they,
bring back Bullock, honestly. Like I'm just sick of what we've been dealing with kicker. Like obviously the team has not been good these past couple of years, but even we shouldn't be rotating kickers like we are. Like it's been ridiculous at this point. So we really got to get this like figured out, whether it's here or the draft, whether we just decide to take one in like the 5th or 6th round. This group looks pretty good, like you said, Young Huku.
Zane Gonzalez.
Yeah, I mean, Bullock's a little bit older. I'd sign him for like a 2 year deal. I feel like he's been pretty solid with the Titans. Obviously, we had him at one point.
Yep,
Uh,
Bulk as well, who was great last year.
yeah, and I guess maybe if the Jets wanted to, they can obviously bring back Pinero and draft one.
I
That's a
agree.
possibility.
I, I would bring Pinheiro back.
Yeah, I mean, I'm also good with them. Just like, I mean, yeah, the only other option I think what I'd want would be Young Huku. I
Yep.
do kind of like I like Dustin Hopkins or Zane Gonzalez. I feel like they're more proven than obviously Pinero. So if the
Yeah,
Jets
they are. Sure.
if the Jets finally want to put their get it like almost set in stone, those would be. I mean, now who he might even get franchise tag. Honestly, I don't know how much it'd be for a kicker, but I'm guessing it wouldn't be crazy for the Falcons to do that. So I think that basically rounds out our group. Is we won't be signing a punter. So anything else before we wrap up?
No, I think that was a really good rundown. I think it's probably fair to expect the Jets to sign at least 5 free agents. Douglas has had at least like 6 or 7 in his 2 years.
Yeah.
So there's definitely some needs, like we said. And adequate depth out there for the Jets at tight end, safety, and whatever other positions, D tackle that they look to improve. So there's definitely going to be a good opportunity.
Yeah, what you said. So thank you guys for obviously sticking to the end. If you did, let us know what maybe players you want that are could possibly hit the market, and obviously we'll see what happens in a couple weeks. So thank you guys.